All right, fantasy football is finally over. Fantasy playoffs are done. So figured it's perfect time to review the Matthew Berry challenge. James Herrick is here. James Herrick is here because he is the only person to win the Vendetta League that isn't me. So credit to James Herrick and his fighting Detroit Lions, who decided they were going to put up like 250 some points in the last week of the year.
Yeah, thank you. I got a tad bit lucky, and I mean you can't really win fantasy without a little.
You
bit
had
of
the
luck.
highest. That was the highest scoring week of the whole season.
Yeah, exactly. I had quite a few Lions who did well. Some homer picks did well. Joe Flacco coming in clutch.
Yeah.
I think I picked up Matt Stafford before because all my quarterbacks got hurt, so I got some help from some waiver wire ads. And one last thing I'll add on to that is Griffin has been taking a victory lap of beating me in the trade we did from week 3, the Justin Jefferson trade. Griff loves to say, oh, I got James in that one. Oh. I mean, I just washed him in that trade. I won that by a mile. Well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. All I know is I won the league. So if getting washed by Griffin, I was. He put it in a post he put it in a post at the end of the year about like what I learned from fantasy. He was like, by the way, I wiped James Herrick in this trade. And I was like, interesting. I'm in the championship. I didn't say anything in the chat. But I do think it's interesting that he's been taking his victory lap on that. And here I am taking my victory lap for winning the league. So
we're gonna have to clip that. We're gonna have to clip that and tag him.
Yeah, he needs to know. He needs to know.
Yeah. Anyway, before the year, I basically have always been of the opinion that Matthew Berry just isn't good at fantasy. I mean, I say that about 99% of this industry. It's the reason we started this whole thing. I just think a lot of people are really bad at this. And the fact that Matthew Berry, he makes millions upon millions of dollars. This was going to be the year we finally track it. Hey, let's put my money where my mouth is. Let's see actually how good Matthew Berry is. And one thing I want to add before we even get started, that list is all Matthew Berry's most confident picks. I didn't go out there and say, hey, let's add James Cook to the list because I really like him, who would have been a hit. Or let's add, pick whoever you want. All the guys that I liked has nothing to do with it. This was just based off of Matthew Berry's love-hate list. So if it wasn't on the list, I couldn't add it. This was only Matthew Berry's most confident predictions. I feel like that needs to be said because I'm not just cherry picking shit and adding whatever I want. I could only add the things that he talked about.
Yeah, and it would have been a lot easier if you went out there and cherry picked.
I didn't pick my most confident.
This guy is going to do well.
Yeah, I didn't pick my most confident things. Like James Cook, I think he finished as he was a top 10 running back, right? He was rated like 25 or 30 or something like that. I mean, I could have added stuff like that. I didn't. I only added the stuff that he had on his most confident list.
Mm-hmm. You played in his ballpark.
Yeah, and played in his ballpark, played in his most confident picks, and we still kicked his ass.
Mm-hmm. And a couple of kind of rule things that we should probably go over before we get into the nitty gritty. You were saying over under. The verbiage on that is, for anyone watching, if it's say 25 is where Berry had a guy and Trey took the over, then Trey is right if it's 30, 35. That gets a little wishy-washy because like betting on the NFL draft, I think it's different for placement. So just to get that out of the way, the over is like an actual higher number.
James Herrick is basically here to be the referee. I'm going to state my case, Do I deserve an extra point, James Herrick is basically here to so I'm not cheating. We're going over the list fairly.
I'll be fair and unbiased. Always am.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the original post.
I think we're starting off with a tricky one. Because my whole point on this was he's not Josh Allen. Can we please stop pretending that he's Josh Allen? He's not close to Josh Allen. Like if you put Lamar Jackson under your love list, it is I think he's the best quarterback in fantasy, which is what he basically said. I was definitely wrong in the fact that Trevor Lawrence would outscore him, but I don't know. I'll leave this up to you. I just don't think he's in that top tier class.
So Lamar finished QB3 on our website scoring. So that's behind Allen and Hurts. So you're right in not comparing him to Allen. You said after the group of Mahomes, Allen, Hurts is what Barry had him at. So he got 2 of the 3 above him, right? He finishes QB3. I think we got to give him a point here, especially since you said Lawrence would finish better.
Yeah,
I think
I should have picked Brock
way to go about it. And this is also one of the best calls on his side of things. So we're starting it out hot for Barry. Because I already looked through all these, but we're starting it out hot for Barry.
No problem.
So he takes one off the jump, but things will change quickly here.
If I have to lose a point, because I didn't bet on Lamar Jackson, I got no problem with it.
It has worked out several years previous. So this is the year it came back to get you, was this year.
This one has to be a win for me.
Anthony Richardson.
This has to be a win for me.
He had him as QB 12. You took the over. He got injured and he finished at 37.
And you notice how I put in there all these season-ending injuries. I don't think that was talked about enough with a guy like Anthony Richardson. I mean, there was the way that he played. There was a good shot he was going to get hurt, and he got hurt multiple times. I mean, they were basically asking this guy to be a option quarterback where he's running the ball like Pat White at Virginia or West Virginia. That's basically the offense they put him in. I mean, there was always a good chance that he was going to go down.
And it's a shame for Anthony Richardson because he was playing well while he was out there. It's not like he was a bomb or doing bad, but like you said, they ran him through the ringer. He was carrying a heavy offensive workload, and that is a positive in fantasy if you can do that for 17, 18 weeks, but the chances of that is fairly slim. He gets hurt, and that, especially his rookie year, is going to be a bigger concern as you're adjusting to getting hit in the NFL. Maybe 5 years down the line, the concern isn't as big, but rookie year, there's a lot of
100%.
That adjustment's bigger.
To ask that guy as a rookie to play the way that they wanted him to play, he was taking beatings, and when he got hurt, it wasn't like we were surprised. He got hurt like 2 or 3 times before they ruled him out for the year.
Yeah, because he sat out games. He sat out games before having the season ender. So I think that is
a lot of his production while he was playing. He would have had to kept getting 800 rushing touchdowns to even maintain what he was doing.
Yeah, and that's like, you could look at this in hindsight and say, oh well, if he would have played 17 games, there was probably going to be some sort of regression.
Like Sam Howell right there. Sam Howell is a perfect example. Like halfway through the year, Sam Howell was quarterback 4. And then he got his ass kicked for how many weeks, and then he fell apart.
Yeah, and got beat down. Yeah. I mean, there would have been some regression at some point here. So it kind of makes it look better because it makes him look smart since he didn't see you know what I mean? Like, it never came to the point of regression. Yeah. So you can go, oh, well, if he didn't get injured. So it kind of gives him a lame excuse, but I still think this is a pretty clear win for you.
I agree.
And then moving down, we've got Geno Smith.
Where did Geno Smith finish?
Short and sweet description, and it's pretty accurate. So Barry had him QB 13. He finishes QB 20, and so that's that's a clear win, and that is behind the likes of, he finished behind Carr, Dobbs, Herbert, who got hurt.
Carr was brutal. The fact that he finished behind Carr is nuts.
Yeah,
I didn't expect him to finish behind Carr.
Carr was 19. You had Baker was 11, Wilson 13. So, Stroud, Stafford, those are some of the guys ahead of him. And
he was behind Stafford.
Some of those guys you could have got for much cheaper draft capital. Much, much cheaper. Stafford missed games as well.
People were going nuts over Geno Smith. I think he went for like $35 in the other league that I'm in.
Mm-hmm. And you could have had Stafford for a quarter of that. So that's a
So
pretty
it's 2-1
clear
right
Trey
now,
win.
right?
Yep, 2-1 for Trey. All right, and then swinging it over to Bijan Robinson.
I believe that this should be a win for me.
Yes, because Barry had him ranked at RB3,
which I thought was nuts.
In hindsight, it is nuts, and he finished RB12, and he gave himself no room for error on this one.
None.
Like, that's an aggressive pick to have a rookie as RB3.
That was my whole point on it. Can we stop pretending he's LaDainian Tomlinson? Like, can we just stop pretending he's LaDainian Tomlinson? Because that's all he basically said the whole time. He's like, this is the next LT. He's going to be the next star running back. You got to take him as a top 3 play. Is like, no. A, he's not that good. And B, even if he was that good, you're asking him to do that with the Falcons.
Yep. That's exactly what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say is the fact that we have so much evidence of how Arthur Smith uses his top offensive weapons that it feels very aggressive to have any of his players ranked in a premier spot. Like,
how close was Algier to Bijan? Because I think that is probably what I should have added in here, just based off the fact that what we know about Arthur Smith. Oh, hey, I have Kyle Pitts. Geno Smith, like that's the shit he just does.
Yeah, give me a second and I will find him. I actually don't think he is that close. He's not in the top 32.
Probably not that far off. I mean, I'm sure he's far off, but I'm sure he's not that far off. Because if you would have gone to like his preseason rankings, I bet it's an enormous gap.
I would like to see the carry numbers for those two. Algier is 34.
Okay.
And RB
that's almost
Bijan.
the starting running back. Almost.
Yeah, that's just outside your top 32. So he was one of the best backups if you want to look at it that way. And it's
that stuff matters. If you have an RB3, odds are the backup's not 33 or whatever.
Yeah. And here's the thing about Algier, just looking at his game logs, he had a week where he had 25, a 16, a 16, and 11. So a lot of his production was big games, but that means they're giving him a lot of volume, giving him a lot of touchdowns. That means you're getting stinkers from Bijan. So, like, if you're not in a best ball league, and also the 2 16s came in the playoffs. He had 2 16-point performances in the playoffs. So there's a chance that you got screwed in the playoffs, especially if you're not in a best ball league.
Big time.
So, and
we're at
RB3 was a crazy for that,
especially his rookie year.
Yep.
Like the only rookie I can even think of that did that was Zeke Elliott, and that's because he was on a good team with a crazy offensive line. He was the only running back in town. We knew he had to carry the offense because it was also rookie Dak Prescott. Like, this was totally different.
Yep. I agree with you. And he's worked out well for you.
These next two, I'm definitely going to lose, but I think those are the only two that I lose the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's my little read through I did beforehand. That's what I came to.
Which, again, you're a Michigan guy, so what I'm about to say probably won't be super surprising, but I got to see it before I go predict it when it comes to anything Michigan. Lions football, Tigers baseball, Pistons basketball. I'm just gonna fade it more times than not.
Which is understandable. I mean, I can't really blame you. If you can go further, Michigan football as well. There's it's been bad for a long time, so it's reasonable to expect it to continue being bad, especially looking back at last year. We started off terrible. We got much better later in the year, and you don't know if that's going to continue. There were some issues with the draft. And then you also have 2 new running backs, and you don't know how exactly they're going to get used, which is I think part of both of your statements.
And this actually helped. they went for it more than any team. Like they're giving their guys more opportunities than anybody. I don't know if we exactly predicted that. And they won the division. If they wouldn't have won the division, because I had Green Bay as winning the division, L call by me. But if they wouldn't have won the division, these two wouldn't have finished that high.
Yeah. I think you might be a year off on Green Bay winning the division. I'm not predicting they're going to win it next year, but I'm saying they're going to be better next year. Love got his first year as a starter. There were some lumps in there. Some games they probably should have won in hindsight. If you get a better defensive coordinator in there, that defense is going to be a lot better. There's talent on that defense. That's why I kind of believed in the Packers. That's a whole nother discussion. But as far as these two guys go, it's also very, very rare that you see these guys finished. Montgomery finished RB8 and Gibbs finished RB10. Having two teammates in the top 10 for running backs. Very, very unlikely.
I'm just never in the history of fantasy football. I'm just never going to predict that two running backs are in the top 10 on the same team.
Mm-hmm. It's a tough call to ask, and I guess Barry wasn't exactly predicting that, to be fair, because I believe Williams was. No, he didn't predict that either. RB30. Yeah. Montgomery was RB23 and Gibbs was RB12 for his projections.
So he was technically low. He was technically low on both of them too. It's just he was closer than I was.
Yeah, slightly low. I don't want to knock him for having RB10 listed as RB12. That's as close of a call as you can get. Well, almost, but he was low on Montgomery.
I'll take the L for the Lions call. No problem.
Yep. And that's and like you said, you bet against Lamar Jackson, got it wrong. A lot of years, feed you good. You bet against the Lions, a lot of years, feed you good. This is just the year it came back.
When's the last time they won the division? When's the last time they won the division?
It was, I believe it was 30 years ago, and it wasn't even the NFC North. So
yeah.
Credit to Dan Campbell. And they should have won the Cowboys game, but that's a whole other discussion that we don't need to get into right now, that I'm still upset about.
So it's 3-3, right?
It is 3-3 after 6. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. This next one's a good one. Rashod Penny.
I would actually like to make my case that I think this should be a 3-pointer for myself.
All right. Just for the actual numbers.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Before you get into your case, he had him as RB40. You take the over. He finishes his RB 128. So technically, he did finish 3 times worse.
Yeah.
Than he projected. So,
but that's not even my argument. My argument is he was so wrong about this that he got all 3 running backs wrong. He had Penny as number 1. I had Penny as number 3. Penny finished as number 3. I had Swift as number 1. Swift was number 1. I had Gainwell as number 2. He did not, he had it in the exact wrong order. That's why I think I should get 3 points here. Because not only did he love Rashod Penny, which was was he usable for a single week? I don't think so.
It's going to take me a second to get to his name because he is 128 slots down.
Yeah, I don't think he was usable for a singular week.
I don't think he was either off the top of my head, but I will double check. All right, Rashod Penny. He finished the season with 2.2 points. So I would say that he was not usable for a single week.
2.2 points on the love list. Love list.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Here's a couple names that outscored Rashod Penny.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Jake Funk. Yeah. Derek Gore, Deion Jackson, Kenyon Drake, Sean Tucker, CJ Ham, Michael Burton, Ty Montgomery, Keyshawn Vaughn. Wow. We'll leave it at that. It's only those are some despicable names to finish behind.
It's so bad. I think I should get more than 1 point here for this. It's so bad. It's so bad.
I will second the 3 point because, like you said, you got the order correct
Yeah.
in the 1, 2, 3, and he finished 3 times worse than Barry projected. He was projected 40, finished 128, I believe it was. So I think there are 2 reasonable cases for the 3-point play on your part. So
He couldn't have gotten the Eagles running back situation worse. Couldn't have gotten it worse.
No. And it's a bad group to get wrong, just considering how much that offense runs the ball. And you wrote a post about this, I believe. But if there weren't so many tush pushes, Swift would have finished very high. I guess that's part of a risk you're taking with the Eagles running backs. Sure. But if he would have got 5 goal line opportunities from the 1, like
if you would have gotten 3 more, if you would have gotten 3 more,
like like I said, that's a risk you have to take with the Eagles. But Swift was still a win.
Huge positive.
But yeah, huge positive, huge win. But it could have been even bigger on the Swift train very, very easily.
Yeah, and he actually kind of disrespected Gainwell, because Gainwell, the first week of the year, he helped you for best ball stuff, and then he was a solid backup kind of all year.
And if Swift, and if you're a believer in getting handcuffs and just waiting for a guy to get hurt, it was clear that Gainwell was the handcuff you wanted if Swift got hurt. And Swift has been hurt in the past. So it's not unreasonable to see Swift get hurt, Gainwell come
I think that's important to note.
I
think it's important to note because Swift could have went down. I mean, we see running back injuries all the time. It would have been Gainwell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very clearly would have been. He started the year as the 1 and got outplayed. Yeah. So he would have been the 1 had Swift not been in the picture. So also last thing I'll say on this, credit to the Eagles for getting Swift for a late round pick. That was a great move by them. So credit to them for that. All right.
So we're putting it at 6-3.
Yep. I think that is very, very fair. Should we jump down to Swift and just call that one since we're already on the discussion of the Eagles and then go back to Perine?
Sure.
So you had Swift the under. He was RB. He had him at RB 31. He finishes at RB 18. I think the only thing that you got wrong in
he
this
didn't finish as
is
top 10 back.
Yeah, he didn't finish at top 10, but like we just said, there was a reasonable path for him to finish much.
He was
higher
damn
than
close.
He did. Yeah, and it's still a win as far as Barry had him at 31. He finishes 18. You were
31 was disrespectful. 31
was crazy. I would have liked to know what he not only finished, but what he was projected as his years with the Lions. Because I don't think that was probably the lowest in his career, except for maybe his rookie year. But even then, there was no one ahead of him in that backfield. So that was probably the lowest projected finish that he had throughout his entire career at 31.
Easy.
So.
And he should have been, well, I mean, in my head at least, I guess they're not now, but he should have been going to a better team.
Swift?
Yeah, you would have thought.
Oh, yeah. And the offensive line.
Eagles coming off the Super Bowl run. They're going to run the ball. I mean, I don't
know. That's the coordinator change, I guess. That coordinator change really hurt them. Time. So I guess that's a hard thing to predict, that they weren't going to sustain their success from last year after 2 coordinator changes. I mean, you'd think they'd have someone in-house that could run the same offensive scheme, but I guess not. So something you got to live with. Still a win. So that puts it at 7-3. And then
Perine, I believe I have this one, right?
You definitely had this one. He had Perine at RB 35, which is right in the Swift range. So when you were on the clock to pick, you were probably deciding between Swift and Perine. So
crazy.
Hope you picked Swift. He finished RB 47. So we hit the over pretty easily on Perine. And it also gets to the point where after you get
curious,
past the
where
40s,
did AJ Dillon rank compared to Perine?
AJ Dillon was 38. Interestingly enough, Aaron Jones was 39. So 38 and 39.
So I actually got that right.
Running backs.
I actually got that right. I said Dillon would outscore him.
Yep, you did. You did get that right. And Dylan did outscore him. He also got outscored. Go ahead.
Dylan didn't even have a good year.
No. Perine was just that bad. I mean, the point totals for Dylan went over 10 points once, and that was a 15.6. He got a 9.2, some 8s, some 9s, some 7s, but he really didn't do that much. If you had him in best ball and you were counting his scores, you were probably having a bad week.
But the point
that
with
said,
Perine stinks. I mean, what the fuck are we talking about? Like,
Perine,
there was no way he was ever going to help you in fantasy. No chance. Yeah. This guy
Perine
gets paid millions of dollars to say Samaje Perine's going to save you in fantasy. I mean, what the fuck are we talking about?
Perine had a 14 and I believe 2 9s, it looks like. So that, and then everything else was below 5. So practically useless majority of the weeks of the year.
And especially on that team. I mean, I know the Broncos are better with Sean Payton, but like, how the fuck did you think he was going to save you or even be useful?
And I don't know about you, but I've always liked Javonte Williams. I think I had him last year. I think me and you bidded for him last year in our site league. I don't think I went in on him this year with the ACL, but there's like, I mean, he had a good running back in front of him. It's not like there was a clear path to.
Yeah, it wasn't even the starter.
Touches. Unless you were banking on Williams getting hurt again.
Actually, the McLaughlin guy is probably their best running back.
Oh, I wonder where he finished. He finished
probably
45.
High.
Yep, 45.
Okay, there you go.
And he had 18 and a 16.
So he basically told you to pick Samaje Perine as like a flex play when you could have had McLaughlin for free.
Yes.
There you go.
That's a loss for Barry, not for you.
So we're at 8-3?
We are at 8-3, yes.
Okay.
All right, now we're heading over to the wide receiver zone.
We're not quite at Sean Allen territory, but we're creeping up on it.
No. That 3-point play does help to really bring up that score.
I mean, it was
like I said, deserved.
It was
deserved, but that's a nice little score boost there. And we got some we're going to have an interesting talk on Tank Dell here, but we're going to start with Skyy Moore, and this one's practically a layup. Skyy Moore, wide receiver 48, and he goes wide receiver 105.
105.
105 is. That's
I guess let me start with this. I guess I'm the only person in America that thinks that Skyy Moore is terrible. I thought he was terrible. I'll never forget. I'll never forget. I actually watched a Western Michigan game. A Western Michigan game. It's in the stock report notes. I said, I don't see it. This guy's fucking terrible. Like he really can't play. I blasted him when they picked Skyy Moore in the second round in their NFL draft grades. I've been ripping Brett Veach for 2 years now, calling out his draft picks. This guy can't play. So the fact that Matthew Berry thought he had talent, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
I think I've only seen one other person put any blame on Brett Veach aside from you. I think I've seen one other person in sports media say, "Hey, are we gonna put any blame on this guy?"
Any blame?
And,
just yeah. And what's crazy is it killed Mahomes' value. It killed Mahomes' value that he doesn't have a receiver.
Yep. And Kelsey's great, but Kelsey is 35 now.
Yeah.
So it's like you can only ask Kelsey to keep being Kelsey for so long.
Kelsey killed you too.
Yeah, Kelsey killed you this year bad, which, I mean, it was going to happen one of these years. He was going to keep being great until he wasn't, and then the year he wasn't, it was going to kill you. That's kind of how a lot of things work in fantasy.
I want to ask you where he had Pickens, actually, in his rankings. Did he have him higher?
I do not know where he had Pickens, to be honest with you. Wide receiver 48, I don't know, but Pickens finished much higher. So I do know that. Skyy Moore finished with 34, so that's probably 2 Pickens games maybe even one. I don't know how many points he got in his season high.
That one game, I think he outscored it by himself. That one.
Yeah. It either took Pickens 1 or 2 games to outscore Moore's season high. And it's probably 1, but if we want to be kind, it's 2.
Now, technically, Brett Veach did take Skyy Moore behind George Pickens, but he traded down and could have taken Pickens. I want to clarify that.
Yeah.
So.
Which is, oof. And that's about as bad as you can imagine Pickens in that offense. So that's
well, it drives me nuts every single fucking day because I have Pickens in fantasy. I sit there and think, oh, what would have been? What would have been?
The fact that he's put up points in Pittsburgh, considering all the junk in Pittsburgh, really tells you how good that guy is. What could have been? All right, that is a win for you. That puts it. What is it? 10-3 or 9-3? 9-3, I believe.
Yeah,
I lost count. 9-3. All right. And then Tank Dell. This is an interesting one.
This is one where you're gonna have to be the referee.
Yeah,
I get it. He had some big weeks, but again, if you're investing in a 160-pound receiver and you think he's not going to get hurt all year, which I actually think I put in my my draft profile when I wrote about Tank Dell, the history on 160-pound guys panning out over a sustainable period of time, it's just like a list of 0. Like it's just something philosophically I will bet against the fact that I weigh 165 pounds. Philosophically, in terms of being an NFL receiver, it's something I will bet against every single day of the week. He was playing for the Houston Texans, who actually outperformed expectations, and
by a mile. By
another thing to note is Matthew Berry and those guys, they don't play best ball, so you actually never really knew when to. If you were putting in a lineup, you had any idea when to start this guy? I mean, any idea?
Yeah.
Now I think
I had him in our best ball league for a period of time, and I was very happy I didn't have to make that decision. I had him and Nico. I was very happy I didn't have to figure out when to start one of them. I was very happy.
His line on it was Tank Dell will be a thing. I think Nico Collins was the thing. Nico Collins. I believe he had one. Had to have. Nico Collins was really the Texans receiver you wanted.
Nico Collins finished wide receiver 14.
Yeah.
And Tank Dell finished 31, I believe it was. 31. Okay. So that was the margin there. And Nico missed 2 games. I know that Tank Dell missed 5. But once again, that's part of the projection and reason not to draft Tank Dell is you're drafting a 160-pound guy. You're going to have to deal with injury concern.
Yeah.
So
you tell me. I don't care. I mean, if you played best ball, he had a couple weeks to help you, but he does not play best ball. You would have had to know when to start him. I don't know.
I think we leave this one off the board. We call it a draw because maybe I'm biased because I benefited from having Tank Dell on my best ball team. Maybe I'm biased in that, looking at it that way. But you also deserve credit for calling Nico Collins ahead of him. So I think we just call it a draw. Barry, if you took him, he didn't even have him ranked, which makes this kind of fuzzy to begin with.
Didn't have him ranked.
You can't even defer to Barry having him 40 and him finishing 31. You didn't have him ranked, so it's hard to even give him credit in that regard. So I think we just call it nil. You and Barry both had some corrects and some incorrects on this one. I think we called it a fair deal.
Fine.
All right, moving on. Rashod Bateman, who I believe you have I believe you have benefited greatly from fading Rashod Bateman throughout his whole entire NFL career.
Unbelievable.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, let's just even go back to that draft. I have the notes on it if someone wants to Google it. AFC North draft grades, whenever someone wants to pull it up from that year. I thought it was a fucking joke that guy went in the first round. He's not a first-round receiver. I understand that he's better than his teammate at Minnesota, Tyler Johnson, but the gap shouldn't have been first and fourth round. Just no way. You took Rashod Bateman in the third or fourth round. Okay, I understand it. Never a first round pick. Was never a first round pick. And if you want to pull up my notes on Zay Flowers, I said Zay Flowers was the first round pick. I love Zay Flowers. So I almost think it should be 2 points. One for Bateman sucking and one for Flowers being awesome.
I was thinking that as well, and it would be similar to the last case. He had Bateman at 44. He finished 88. So literally, there's a case for 2 points there. You said draft Flowers instead. So we use the same logic for getting you 3 points on the Eagles running back trio. I think we should honor that here and have 2 points for Barry being literally having him twice as bad as he was, and for you correctly picking which.
This is the main problem I have with Matthew Barry. It's not that it's one of the main problems. I just wish he would admit that he doesn't watch college football. Like, just admit that you don't watch college football, because Trey on Saturdays, he's watching Boston College. I'm watching Boston College when he's out there. Like, he doesn't watch college football. I just wish that he would admit it, because there's no way. I guess some people did do this, but there's just no way anyone could have possibly thought that Rashod Bateman was better than Zay Flowers. I just refuse to believe anybody thought that watches college football.
Yeah. And to add on to that, even if you're not going to watch college football, watch film on the guys coming in at least. Like, maybe you don't have time on a Saturday, but if you're not going to make the time on a Saturday, at least watch film.
He gets paid millions of dollars, and he has help. He's got that Connor Rogers guy who's supposed to do NFL draft stuff for them. He's got that weird Australian guy. He's got, how much help does this guy possibly have that he can get shit like this wrong? Yeah. And I don't have the whole fucking team behind me.
Yeah, this is a bad one to get wrong as well, because the Ravens ended up having a good offense. And if you have Flowers, that helps you a ton, especially in best ball. But even if you're not in best ball, depending on your roster size and you're just doing a lineup league, there's a chance that Zay Flowers ended up being a really good flex for you.
Where did he finish? Where did Flowers finish?
27, I believe.
That's huge. That's a huge hit.
But I will double check. Yeah. 27 for Zay Flowers. And in the last week, he had 18. Week before, 15. Week before that, stinker with 0.7. And then 2 weeks prior, 15 by 22. So
he was peaked very at the right good. Time, too.
He was very good down the stretch and in the playoffs, aside from one stinker performance, which is why you should play best ball, not lineup leagues. But if you had Zay Flowers, there's probably a good chance that you had success, assuming other parts of your team were performing as well. He was a good piece to have down the stretch.
I just can't believe that anybody thought Rashod Bateman was better than Zay Flowers. I just can't believe it.
It is very, very crazy. So that puts us.
I do actually. I should probably do this too, because my track record on scouting receivers is off the charts. I wonder how many other people had Zay Flowers as the number one receiver in that draft, because I don't think it was any.
I bet there are some.
You think?
I don't think that was consensus, but I'm sure there are a couple. Because the way that I think this class was talked about, it was JSN, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnson. Those were the 3 first rounders, right?
Addison.
So Addison as well. Yep, Addison. So I believe that was a combination of the 4, and I don't think there was really a consensus on who's 1, 2, 3.
See, I think the consensus was Smith and Jigba as the number 1, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't track what other people really do, but
I'd say that was the most popular. But I saw a lot of different wide receiver rankings this year.
How would you say it turned out? Like, who would you say was the best rookie receiver this year?
The best rookie receiver was probably Zay Flowers.
I agree.
JSN might get him in the long haul. I think he got a lot better throughout the year, but that's to be seen yet. But I think those are probably Addison. Hell, Addison did good too.
I had
as long
Addison,
as you don't
I had Addison as second,
and then who'd you have 3?
I think, in Jigba.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I have to go back.
I remember you had Quentin Johnson at like 7, right? Something like that.
8 or something.
Yeah.
That which was actually probably going to be
right. You might end up being wrong. You might have been too high on.
Yeah.
I wish I would have had the guts to call that one, because that one, I was always real iffy on Quentin Johnston. I fell in love with him a little bit this year with the Chargers. Oh, maybe he'll get some opportunities. He got opportunities and stuff. So
can't get open.
I put him in my waiver wire a few too many times, and it kind of irks me. So I'll leave it at that. But this last one, Mike Evans. This one is about as big of a home run as you can get.
About as bad, about as disrespectful as it possibly gets to suggest that Mike Evans, the only way he was finishing as wide receiver 33 is if he tore his ACL in week 3. Other than that range of outcome, there was no shot. I mean, no shot he was ever getting this correct. Forget even this year. He's never finished wide receiver 33 in his fucking life. I mean, you could cherry pick his worst season ever, and it still wouldn't be 33.
Yeah, and the talk about Mike Evans is, you can pretty much write him in for 1,000 yards. You can pretty much write him in for 1,000, and like that you can take that as a joke. You can take that as being 100% serious. However you want to take that talk of Mike Evans getting 1,000 yards every single year. 1,000 yards is, that's going to get you above wide receiver 33. If he just gets 1,000 yards.
He didn't just get you
sprinkle
above
in a couple touchdowns.
He didn't just get you above 33.
Oh, no, that's not what I'm saying, but I'm talking worst case scenario. You're getting 33.
He was like one of the biggest bargains in all of fantasy, which I even made a separate YouTube short about it.
And here are some nice little stats on this. You took the under on wide receiver 33. Mike Evans finished wide receiver 3 with 227 points. Wide receiver 33 had 131 points. So he almost got 100 more points than wide receiver 33. So this was home run all the way around. If you took Mike Evans in 7th round, if you spent $15 on Mike Evans, you were absolutely in a great spot this year.
100%.
It's as simple as that.
100%.
And I like when we're talking, and one of the reasons that I assume one of the reasons Barry had him so low is because Baker's the quarterback. But Mike Evans, I don't want to say as a guy that's quarterback proof. But we have seen him perform with guys who are not elite quarterbacks. If you give Mike Evans opportunities, he's a guy with a big catch radius. He can make up for a bad quarterback.
I don't give a shit who his quarterback is. He's fucking good.
Yeah. So this was a home run all the way around.
It should almost be 2-pointer. It should almost be a 2-pointer because of how fucking terrible it was.
Also, this last sentence this last little bit, this is Mike Evans. This is Mike Evans. He'll find a way to finish better than that. I'll take the under. It's like, that's as simple as it gets. Like, sometimes fantasy football is complicated. Sometimes it's really simple. Mike Evans was never wide receiver 33.
The other crazy part about his list, he had 2, not a whole list, 2 receivers on his hate list, 2, and both were dead wrong. 2. The other one,
Evans, I assume.
Mike Evans, and then Michael Pittman, who I assume finished higher as well.
I will find Pittman, but I also assume he had a good year with a backup quarterback. So
he put up an entire list of all this shit, and the only 2 receivers on his hate list, Mike Evans, and Michael Pittman.
Pittman was 25, so
he was dead wrong on that too.
Yeah, depending on where he had him ranked, but the draft capital you would have had to spend would have been good for a 25 finish. Just in the simplest way to put it.
So what's the score here now?
So let's see. It was 9-3 straight up. and then we gave 2 extra points for the Eagles because it was. So that puts us at 11. An extra point for Bateman puts us at 12. And then if we're going to give an extra point for Evans, that puts us at 13.
How do you not? How do you not? This was one of the worst calls of all time. Mm-hmm. But you know what the craziest shit is? He'll go on his show at NBC Sports and he'll never fucking say this. He'll never acknowledge that he was dead wrong about this. He'll hope everybody forgets. This is why I wanted to start tracking this shit. He'll hope everyone forgot that he said Mike Evans sucked. He'll hope you never even bring it up. He'll just go about his day. Like, that's the shit that drives me nuts about these people. If I get something wrong, I'm here to answer the fucking music. Like, I got the Detroit Lions running backs wrong. All right, let's talk about it, you know? I said Jalen Hurts wasn't going to be anything coming out. Okay, I wrote a post on it. These fucking people, none of them are accountable. None of them are accountable. This is one of the worst calls in fantasy in the entire year. Mm-hmm. In the entire year.
I think instead of giving you a bonus point, we should give him negative points. Just to really hammer home the fact that he's wrong.
This is one of the worst calls in the whole year. I mean, you're talking about passing on a guy that could have won your league. There's different players that affect the outcome. Guys like this, where you pick them late and then they finish super high, that's how you win your league. The fact that he faded a league winner says everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like if you have Mike Evans, best ball, no best ball, auction, no auction, if you took Mike Evans at a later point in your draft, regardless of the format, PPR, non-PPR, you were in a great spot to win your league, assuming you weren't diced by injuries at other spots. This is like you said, this is a league winner, regardless of the league, regardless of anything. If you had Mike Evans, you were in a position to win your league.
Yeah.
So
what's the final tally we got here?
I say we call it, what was it? I say we call it 12-2. Let's give him a negative point on Evans. Is that not fair?
You're here to be the referee.
I say we call it 12-2. Negative point on Evans.
Okay.
If that doesn't deserve a negative point, I don't know what does.
Okay. And so my prediction going in was, I think we're going to kick his ass, but I'm not quite sure it'll be Sean Allen territory. This was Sean Allen territory. We fucking smoked him.
I believe we talked about this, me and you, on an episode of Cheese. And if I remember correctly, you said, what are the betting odds? And I think I said minus 300. And you covered pretty easily. That was a good bet.
I would say, yeah.
It's about as easy of a cover as you can get.
Okay. All right, let's take this shit off, and then right. Do we have any closing thoughts? Any closing thoughts we want to go over? I mean,
my closing thoughts are this was an absolute win for you. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than 12-2. Even if you don't even touch bonus points or subtract points, it would have been 9-3. So no matter how you slice it, this was a big win for you. So are you going to try and top it next year? That's my question. It's going to be hard to top 12-2, 9-3, however you want to look at it. If you're watching, it's going to be hard to top, but you're going to try and run it back. That's my biggest question.
I'll do this every year, just like with Sean Allen. I'll do this fucking every year. I'll expose that piece of shit for what he is. I mean, and again, I didn't even bring this up. I just thought about it now. His ride or die this year, you can actually go back. Maybe we can have it edited in. His ride or die this year was Amon-Ra St. Brown. He did a mock draft for NBC Sports, picked Stephon Diggs ahead of him. St. Brown finished ahead of Diggs, and then St. Brown went with the very next pick in the mock draft.
And he would have been better if he stuck to his guns.
That's the problem with him, though. That's the problem with him. He never puts his foot in the ground. He never digs in and fucking believes in something. And he knows nothing, and I mean nothing, about college football. Nothing.
All issues when you're ranking fantasy players.
But this is the problem. This guy makes millions of dollars per year. Millions. I don't care if you do or don't watch college football. If you make that much money, can you put somebody on the staff that can fucking help you with some of this shit? I mean, there was no chance, other than injury. We know injuries happen. There was no chance that Zay Flowers wasn't going to outscore Rashod Bateman. I mean, the talent gap is just astronomical.
Also, aside from talent gap, they took him in the first round. If they take him in the first round, you know that's the guy they prefer. Like, even
we took Bateman in the first round too.
Yeah, how many years ago? And they had to take another guy because Bateman didn't work out. Like, if Bateman would have worked out, you're not taking Flowers this year. So you're taking Flowers because you need a wide receiver.
I actually think
that's why I take him in the first round.
I think during the draft, a bunch of us had that conversation of, they asked me if I liked the Flowers pick, and I said, yeah, I like the Flowers pick, except for the fact that they fucking wasted the Bateman pick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think those were my exact words, actually.
They were making up for a previous mistake with that pick, which I guess you kind of have to, but don't make the mistake in the first place.
People can say whatever they want about me hating on the Ravens. I've been almost right about them every single fucking time. I mean, say what you want about Lamar Jackson. They're better with Josh Allen. I don't think that's a fucking conversation.
Oh, yeah. Now, this is very off track, but what happens if they win the Super Bowl? What happens? What do you do? What do you do if they win the Super Bowl?
I can't celebrate with them.
All right. Okay.
Can't.
Fair enough. Sticking to your guns.
Can't celebrate with them. I mean, but yeah, we'll do this every single year. And again, it should be, I just want to remind people, I didn't just cherry pick whatever I wanted. I went by his fucking list. His list of the most confident things that he felt.
Yep. And if you would have mixed in your own guys, like you said earlier, if you would have mixed in your own guys, the outcome would have been even wider, because you would have had a guy like James Cook, for example, who you've been high on. You would have had him as a guy in under, you would have had your own guys.
I would have absolutely loved to mix in some of my own people, but I kept this as hard as I possibly could make it. Let's see his guns, his predictions, what he's got. And he couldn't have been more wrong about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, come to find out you didn't need your guys.
Why does he make millions of dollars per year when the NBC Sports could just, hey, Trey, what are your rankings? I don't even need to work for your network. Just cut me a check for like $100. I mean, seriously. Trey, what are your rankings? I mean, seriously, you're paying this guy millions of dollars. I'll do it for fucking $100. You can have my shit. I don't care. Like, this guy's fucking embarrassing. He's terrible. When are we going to talk about it?
Cut me a check for $100.
He's got on Twitter, and they suck this guy's cock like he knows everything. It's crazy.
I remember you sent the tweet a while back of his Rashod. Didn't he said something about Rashod Penny having a great game? Oh, it was Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith's gonna have a great game.
Yeah. I mean, we could pull some of that shit up if we want. I don't know how long you want to go with this stuff, but he had a segment where he's like, yeah, Devonta Smith, he's gonna have a big week, and he had like one catch for like 6 yards. That week that it was against the Jets, whatever he did.
It would be as big of a deal if it wasn't consistent.
And
these are consistent issues.
Can we pull up this video? Just one last close. Mm-hmm. And because people might say, oh, maybe the 3-pointer was a little bit outrageous in terms of the Eagles running back situation. Can we pull up this clip really quick? Here we go.
I think he's a sell high. I think he's the ultimate sell high, even forgetting their injury history, which is real and
sell high.
Right?
Sell him, he said.
When they get in close, they're going to Jalen Hurts, right? So he's likely not going to get, like, a bunch of different times this year, he's had the opportunity to get in the end zone. He's had some bad luck. He's been down at the 1, but also when it's first and goal on the 1, they give it to Jalen Hurts. The other thing is he's just not being used in the passing game, which is super weird, right? Given, what he used to do in Detroit. But like through 3 weeks, he has an 8% target share. He has 3 or fewer targets in each game. So really, like, again, he was dominant in this game, 130 yards on 16 rushes, 1 reception for 8. But like, so wait, he got like, in a game like this, he got under 15 fantasy points. Like this should have been a 22-point game given how dominant he was and how much they were up. And so my point is that He's been in 2 national games where everyone's seen him look like, whoa, DeAndre Swift looks awesome. That offensive line is great. But again, like he's probably not scoring a ton of touchdowns and he's not involved in the passing game and the injury history is real. And Kenneth Gainwell is still there. And so I just think he's a sell high to me. I'm not just giving him away because I do think there's value and I think he's clearly the Eagles running back you want. But I actually think that you could get kind of a king's ransom for him right now, and I would explore that.
So he told you not to pick him. He probably had 0 stocks of him. He probably had 0 stock of DeAndre Swift. Then he's telling you to trade him. Both instances wrong.
And it's weird because the logic he used, some of it made sense, but it's like you can't just ignore 130 yards on the ground. It's like, my God.
So
130 on
saying,
16 carries or 16 or 14.
Don't draft him. Then he says, trade him. So if you actually listened to him and traded him, you probably made twice the mistake. So anybody that says, "Oh, I don't deserve the 3 points there," do you still believe that?
That makes it look even worse. It really does.
Now we can close with this. I sent you the screenshot. I actually found it faster than I thought. So he lists Amon-Ra St. Brown as his ride or die. What does that mock draft say? Can we pull the mock draft up?
Yeah, give me a second. I just gotta download these.
It's incredible. It's truly incredible. He won't talk about this stuff. He'll ignore it. He won't say a word. He'll show up and act like he knows everything. It just goes to show. I mean, you want to call this guy the king of fantasy football. All right, whatever. But he's not good at it. Let's just acknowledge that. Like I have way more respect. Way more respect. Mel Kiper's not right about everything when it comes to the NFL draft, but he's the godfather of the NFL draft shit. Matthew Berry, we can sit here and pretend that he's the godfather of fantasy football. He's not good at it. And not only is he not good at it, he's not advising you on the correct ways to play, like best ball, like 2 quarterback leagues, like superflex leagues, like auction leagues. He doesn't advertise any of that. So how can he be the godfather of fantasy football? There it is. He had pick 9, went with Diggs. Passed on his own ride or die.
And 1, stick to your guns. 2, you shoot yourself in the foot when you don't take your ride or die because your ride or die ends up finishing better.
But you know what he'll do? He'll go on TV. He'll say, I was so right about Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
No accountability.
And it's also like, I think you said this earlier, where he just like, there's a level of, in fantasy, there's a lot of people who have the guys they like or dislike, but they stick to the board rather than just, this is the guy I love, I'm going to take him. Or this is the guy I hate, I won't take him. And they, 2 rounds in, the guy they hate is still there, and they go, oh, well, I might as well take him because it's value. There is no like actual, like you said, foot in the ground take of, I like this guy or I hate this guy, so I'm going to reach. But it's okay if you reach. If he outperforms or if he overperforms the position, you love him, you think he's going to overperform. It's like the logic doesn't really make sense to pass on a guy you love if you think he's going to overperform. Because this 1.9, spending the 9th overall pick on wide receiver 4, should be considered a win in fantasy football.
That's the craziest shit about it. It's like, dude, fantasy football, it works one way. Like my bit, I guess to use the similar term, my greatest ride or die ever was Chris Johnson. I just wanted him in every league. I had to have him in every league. I didn't give a shit who was on the board. I didn't give a shit what it was going to cost. He was mine. If Amon-Ra St. Brown is your ride or die, you can't fucking pass on him in that scenario. No. How can you?
Also, it makes it seem like we're putting all this blame and which is true, but also the shoes are on the other foot. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. Bias or no bias, I'm from Michigan, but he's one of my guys in our fantasy league. I went out there and I bid until I got Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I won our league. And like I said, maybe that's because I'm biased because I'm from Michigan and watch Lions games, but I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. Thought he was going to be good this year, and I went out there, spent the draft capital to get him. You know what I mean? So maybe it's because I'm a biased Lions fan, but I also, it's not like we're criticizing him for things that we ourselves didn't do. I went out there, loved Amon-Ra St. Brown, and got him.
But it's not even the point. It's like, how can this guy possibly sit there and say Amon-Ra St. Brown is the league winner? He is the guy out of any player I believe in the most. Passes on.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do it? How do you do it?
And you know what? Shout out to whoever Damien is. I don't know this Damien fellow, but the Damien fellow who ended up taking Amon-Ra, and it ended up being a good bit of comedy here for us.
How about it?
To take Amon-Ra, and maybe his hypothetical team in this scenario is better, because he did have Amon-Ra, but it does give us a little bit of comedy to look at. And you know what? Denny taking CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb ended up being a great pick too. So we did get outpicked by the next two guys. So what do you know?
How do you do it?
But he's the best.
Yeah. King of fantasy football, millions of dollars per year, millions of followers. People just love to go work for that guy. I mean, who's that fucking weirdo, that Ian Hardtits? I mean, when PFF hired him, I wasn't even fucking interested in that guy. Of course, he ends up with Matthew Berry, that fucking clown. So, I mean,
is that the Australian guy?
No, the guy that works for his like fantasy life site or whatever. Like, how could you possibly subscribe to that shit? You want to pay for that shit?
I hate that. That's a whole nother discussion of paying for content. That
you're gonna pay for his shit.
That's a whole nother can of worms. I'm not a fan of paying for stuff. You're
gonna pay for his stuff though. Where he puts out rankings, doesn't believe in them. Goes with the opposite shit. Puts out rankings dead wrong. I mean, what do you want? What do you want from me?
That is true. That is pretty bad. If you're paying for anything, probably not the right stuff to pay for.
I don't have anything else to add.
All right. Neither. I think we covered just about everything as far as the Matthew Berry and the Matthew Berry challenge goes, and ended up being a victory for Trey. So I think we got a good one.
Oh, it wasn't just a victory. It was on the level of 300 Spartan. Like a lot of deaths. Like we lost a couple guys, but a lot of deaths.
Yeah, we lost a couple guys we didn't trust to begin with, if we're being honest. Like we had that discussion earlier, but it was some names that were a little wishy-washy that we lost. So
the only ones I did lose were Detroit Lions running backs and Lamar Jackson.
Yep, and then we gave the draw on Tank. So
no problem.
Yeah, pretty good.
All right, we'll be back next year.
All right.